There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Welcome into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm Tim Dennis in for Dave Schrader. Today, we've got an exciting program today, and we'll get into it here in just a moment. Today, we're talking with our guest. Our guest is Logan Corelli, and we'll be talking about his book, The Haunted Heart of America, in-depth investigations of the Villisca Axe Murder House, Myrtles Plantation, and other frightful sites. And Logan has a vast past that we'll talk about having to do with paranormal investigation, parapsychology, and much, much more. We'll get into that here in depth in the program. A couple of house cleaning notes here before we get started with the program. I want to remind you to go to darknessevents.com. We've got more and more things happening throughout the year as we get going here. Dave's mentioned to you the Romania trip. Those spots are going quickly. If you want to go to Dave to Haunted Romania, lots of great sites that you may not have even seen if you went with Dave before to Romania. Look at all the details on darknessevents.com. Look for the banner that mentions Haunted Romania. Click on the banner, follow the link, and get all the details. Make sure you get this trip. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip. And I believe Dave has said they're going to move on from Romania now. This may be your last opportunity to go with the whole group to Romania and check out the countryside there in Romania and see Haunted Romania for what it is. This may be your last opportunity, folks, to get in with that. It's a limited group. It's a group of around 30 people that's going to be checking out Romania with Dave in the group. So make sure you get your tickets now. Again, those spots are going quickly, so make sure you go to darknessevents.com, click on the banner, and get in on that trip. Also, Dave and I will be at Michigan Paracon this year together. I believe we're doing a presentation together this year, if I remember right. Be sure to get your tickets for that. The banner is there at darknessevents.com for that. And a very special event that we're doing at the end of June that we are finalizing has to do with the, I believe, 25th anniversary of the film Tombstone. And details will be up shortly about that. We're really excited about it as the details are getting finalized. Actor Michael Biehn will be out there. I know that Frank Stallone, I hear now, is going to be out there. There's going to be lots of stuff going on having to do with the 25th anniversary of the filming of the movie Tombstone. And there is going to be a ghost hunt out there. I'm not going to quote which active location the ghost hunt's going to be at because, again, details are being finalized for this. But keep your eye on darknessevents.com. We're going to do a live taping of the show out there in Tombstone. So you're going to want to follow us out there. We're going to have a great time out there, folks. Again, darknessevents.com. And you can come on out and follow Dave and I out there. We're going to have a good time out in Tombstone the end of June. So things are shaping up for the rest of the year. Be sure to keep your eye out on darknessevents.com as well. And follow us out there. Also, IWI International, or actually Independent Wrestling International, is the home wrestling federation that I belong to. I'm the general manager and the ring announcer for IWI. April 28th, we return back to the Hopkins American Legion. I want to thank everybody who came out Saturday for our initial card out in Hopkins. We had a great turnout out there. It was great to see everybody out there on Saturday, March 17th for Cloverleaf Carnage. And we return April 28th with a special steel chair match between, I'll call him the convict. He says he's exonerated, but the convict Damian Graves and the insane prodigy Sterling Bond. A special steel chair match going on April 28th out at the Hopkins American Legion. Tickets are $12 for adults, $10 for kids. And again, that's April 28th out at the Hopkins American Legion. We'll let you know more about it as we get closer to the date. Let's jump into tonight's program, shall we? Excited to have our next guest aboard with us tonight. The book is The Haunted Heart of America, In-Depth Investigations of the Villisca Axe Murder House, Myrtles Plantation, and Other Frightful Sights. Logan Corelli is our guest tonight, and Logan has extensive, 17 years to be exact, experience in investigating haunted locations across America. He holds a PhD in parapsychology as well as a doctorate in metaphysics from the University of Metaphysical Science. He also holds a number of certifications in paranormal study. Logan has appeared on Animal Planet's The Haunted and the film Ghosts and Legends of Oklahoma, and he's been featured in newspaper and magazine feature stories. Logan regularly organizes paranormal conferences, conventions, and fundraisers as well to help educate and support the paranormal researcher community. Let's welcome to the Beyond the Darkness, Logan Corelli. Logan, good evening. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's good to have you aboard tonight. First of all, let's just start off the bat. And the obvious question here is your interest in the paranormal, and at what age was it sparked? We all have our different experiences that we all have, but what was yours? What was your first memory of a paranormal experience?
Well, that actually is what starts this book. And I wrote this book kind of chronologically, where it would kind of open up a little bit about me, because a lot of people don't know who I am, especially out of this region here. And, about my history and progress and things. But my first experience actually took place when I was 8 years old. And it wasn't one of those things where, I was in a house and, I heard a noise or, something moved or, it was a really extreme experience. And it was one that not only stuck with me through my adolescence, but also once I got into adulthood and things like that, my interest really peaked, and I really decided that I wanted to find some valid answers as to what could have happened. Okay, when you're 8 years old, your perception of everything is very limited, very much the paranormal, because you have no idea about anything. But I'll kind of start at the beginning to kind of tell you how that it kind of played out. And again, the book talks about it, but there's a lot of things that were kind of left out of the book as far as details and things. So basically, in the summers, my mother and I would take trips here, and we would go stay at a resort in eastern Oklahoma. It was kind of like a summer ritual. We would go, and we would take friends sometimes. We would play, and we'd spend 2 or 3, 4 days there, and then we would come back. Okay, so nothing, strange, anything unusual. Well, on one such visit, she decided that she was going to stop about halfway and stay at this resort, because she had never stayed there. And she had heard, things about it, good things, and she was like, why don't we just stay one night and we'll drive back the rest of the way the next day? And, of course, had a pool and there were kids, and so I didn't object to that. So, pretty much most of the day was pretty normal. It was everybody, getting settled and getting some food and playing and doing the summer thing. Then it got to where it, was getting dark. And, got to come in, let's, get settled, not going to bed, but just, settling into the room type of thing. Well, I was always kind of like the errand boy. So, she was like, why don't you go down and fill up our ice bucket, Oh, okay, I've done this plenty of times. I didn't think anything about it. So the way our room was, the ice machine was all the way at the other end of the hall. So I had to make kind of a long walk, but, nothing real big. So I go down, I have my bucket, I get my ice, and I start to walk off, and I stop. It was like something just got my attention, okay? So I turn around, and there's nobody standing there, but I look over on the wall, and there's like a perfect silhouette of a man, or, you know, a grown figure, 6 feet tall, wasn't moving. And I kind of looked at it, and I examined it, and, you know, I thought, maybe I'm seeing something, because I could see my own shadow was moving, and it didn't really frighten me, really, at that point. I just kind of had blown it off and said, whatever. So I turned around, and I started walking away. Well, I turned back, and I noticed the shadow started walking towards me. And I'm still looking back, and no one's there. So I started kind of walking, and I walked a little faster, and it started gaining pace, you know, when I would get faster. And then finally, I got so scared that I broke out in a run. And I was running, and I'm hugging onto this ice bucket, trying not to, you know, spill and trip and fall. And I get to the door, and I'm like beating on the door, and I'm yelling for my mother, and the shadow's coming. I see it coming down the hall, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, my God, you know, I could be killed. What's taking her so long? You know, and I backed up in the door, and when the shadow became parallel with me in that door, it just completely gone, almost like it just disintegrated right there. It was gone. And my mother finally opened the door, and I fell into the room, and, you know, the ice was all over the floor, and she's looking down, and she's looking down the hall, and looking, what's going on? And, you know, I took me a while to, you know, really catch my breath, and I was trying to explain to her what was, you know, what I'd seen and what happened. And she was like, oh, you know, you were just, you know, scared. And, you know, she put absolutely zero, you know, it was completely invalid at that point. So I'm telling her about it, whatever. Well, one of the things that wasn't in the book that I had left out, and was that when we were there, we were staying on the 4th floor, and on the 5th floor above us, there was construction going on. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you heard a lot of you know, drilling and noises and banging and, you know, typical construction noises coming from the floor. Well, as it got to be night, my mother got kind of frustrated. She was like, you know, I wonder how long they're going to be doing that, because, you know, if they're doing that at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, it's going to be hard to sleep and whatever. So she had actually called down the front desk, and she said, you know, hi, I'm in room, you know, 4 whatever, and she said, you know, how long are the construction people going to be upstairs? Because, you know, are they going to be doing this all night? And you know, and so the front desk clerk had told her, now, the construction crew leaves at 5 o'clock. There's nobody up there. And she said, well, somebody's up there because they're banging and making all these noises. You better send security up there because someone might be messing with their stuff or, you know, whatever's going on. So she hung up the phone. I don't know exactly what all the conversation, but she hung it up and said they were going to deal with it. And, you know, this was going on, and she had called back, and she said, hey, what's up with this construction? And they told her, they said, ma'am, that, you know, they went up there and looked. They said everything's dark. They don't hear anything. Nothing's going on. And she said, well, come to my room. There's definitely something going on. You tell me where these noises are coming from. And so no one ever came into the room. And I'd say probably, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour later, there was a knock at the door. And it was a perfect pre-knock, knock. And, you know, she went up. And my mother is somebody who's really super cautious. You know, she doesn't just open the doors. She's looking at the, you know, peephole and asking, who is me? You know, never got a response and never saw anybody. So then answered the door. About 15 minutes later, there was another knock at the door. And she, again, would go up, who's there? Nobody. So she decided she was going to, you know, put the chain on and open the door so she could see someone. And, of course, nobody's there. So then it got to where it was, you know, 15 minutes, then it would be like 10 minutes, and then it would be like 5 minutes. And so she was convinced that it was a kid that was like playing jokes on her, knocking and running away. And so she said, okay, I'm going to wait for them. And the next time they knock at that door, I'm going to fling this door open and jump out and scare them. And so I said, okay. And, sure enough, those 3 knocks came, knock, knock, knock. It flew the door, because, you jump out there, and it's completely dead quiet. There's no one running to either end of the hall. There's no one had time to jump in another room and shut the door. I mean, it was literally like a second. And, she's kind of standing there, scratching her head, and she backs up into the room, and she still has her hand propped up against the door, and the door, bam, 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 like while she was holding it, and she screamed and just slammed the door. And by this time, we're all, scared. And, what does she do? She goes against our luggage and piles it in front of the door. Like, you just trapped us in here with this thing, And so we're all backing up in the room, back against the bed, and all of a sudden, we had this small little, 13-inch TV that was on the stand. And, this was in the, mid-'80s, and it was an older TV, had the turn knob, so there was no remote. There was nothing that could really manipulate the TV from coming on or off. And the TV kicked on, and the screen was just like a bright glow red, okay? Mm-hmm. The whole screen, no writing, no words, no nothing. And there was a man that was laughing. And it wasn't like an evil, diabolical laugh, I mean, it was just like a man that was just, just laughing. And she's like, oh my God, it's laughing. And, we were like, unplug it. And then, she went to go get the cord, and, the thing went off. And so we're like, oh my God, what now? Well, we probably, I don't know how long we stood there, scared and confused. And all of a sudden, we started hearing this howling sound. And, we could tell it was coming from, like, outside. But, we didn't really know what it was. Well, it picked up, and it picked up, and it picked up. And all of a sudden, it was like the wind. The wind was picking up, and it was, doing this ferocious... And we looked outside, and not one tree was moving. Because in Oklahoma... If you hear strong winds, you think tornado. So right. You panic, Mm-hmm. So, there was none of that. And yet it was so strong that literally the glass was shaking. And, we're looking outside, and, everything that we could see was calm and still, and all of a sudden it stopped. And again, dead silent, nothing. Well, after a while, we noticed there was this, like, fog that appeared on the window. And, we were all like, what is that? What is that? And it was almost like it was coming up and it was going away. And then you would see like depressions or something into it, almost like someone was breathing on it, and then it was going away. And we could actually go up to the window and, like, wipe our hand across it. It was coming from the other side of the glass, the outside. But nobody was out there. And as we sit there, kind of like the final straw, if you will, was when we were all sitting there and this patch of fog came up and it said, "You're dead." And she goes, "We're gone." And we left. And I never went back there again. Actually, I did once before they demolished the building. And so I went home with that, and I carried that for like 10 years. And, I always was interested in, ghost stories and the paranormal and haunted houses and legitimate, not like the attractions and stuff.
Right.
And, I got to thinking about it, and I decided that I wanted an explanation for what happened. I wasn't expecting a 100%, this is what it was, because it was always in debate as to what it could have been. I just wanted to know what could have caused something like that to happen. And, I've had several other people that had experiences there that had told me, we heard noises. We saw things, shadows, and different things that had happened. And I mean, I've heard everything from burial grounds to demonic entities to curses to I even had I was doing a parapsychology course, and I was writing like my final paper, and one of the topics that I wrote about, I included that story, and one of the topic was psychokinesis, and the guy that was running the class had actually wrote me back and said that he believed that a large part of what had happened could have been from myself, that I had actually unwillingly caused that activity to happen. Now, whether I believe that or not, it's open. I've had things happen that could have been related to that, and I'll kind of touch on that later. With the house, things that's happened to my house, in my house, okay. And spirits and things that seem to come and go. But that was actually the first thing that had happened, and then. But
Logan, let me stop you here for a second, because in order to blame you for that in a psychokinetic rage, so to speak, that instructor would have to be saying that you would have to be having a problem with the hotel that you're in at the time. Am I correct?
Yes, or having an effect from something that had happened there.
Okay.
Which there was nothing really. Right. Nothing had happened up until the whole ice event. Now, it is possible, and I'm just saying this is a possibility, that maybe there were spirits there. Okay, the ice event was completely unrelated to me. It was spiritual, okay? Mm-hmm. And then maybe my reaction to that in extreme fear caused the rest of the events to take place in the hotel room. But I can tell you that I don't believe I had anything to do with the noises upstairs or, the man in the hallway or woman, whoever, the adult figure.
Right.
And so, is that possible? Yes. And I only say that as a possibility because there was actually a sound phenomenon that actually had followed me around for a while. And a lot of people thought that I was somehow connected to it. And, so I'm not trying to say that I have abilities. I'm not trying to say that I can make things happen. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that was one of the suggestions that was proposed to me as to what could have happened.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, at the time, I know you probably aren't stopping, as the entire family's in fear, you're probably not stopping to ask the hotel staff or any of the staff, has this ever happened to anybody before? But I take it in the 10 years since, you probably did some investigating, or you probably did some research to see if there was a history of any of this thing going on with different families. Now, or if people had shared experiences that were similar to yours. Were you finding that there was a history of different spirits that were doing something similar to this? Was there a history of the ice? Was there a history of the fog?
Well, I didn't find anything specific to those events, but I did talk to people when I had told this story to a few people. They had told me they had stayed there before, and they had heard noises, walking in the room, different things like that they couldn't explain, things from other floors. One person told me that they heard what they thought was a fight between a husband and wife, or boyfriend and girlfriend, or whoever in the next room to them, and they had I guess they had called and sent somebody to go and check on them or whatever, and they said no one's staying in that room. So again, that's what that was told to me, and so I personally, I think something has gone on there. I don't know if there was a specific event or something that caused the activity, or if it's always been there, if it was the land and they just put the hotel on the land. I don't know. But I do believe that somehow it's all connected, and I don't believe it's just me. So as far as what it is, I did go back, but like I said before, they tore the building down, and they did not let me investigate it, which is what I wanted to do. I had a bag of equipment ready to go, and I was trying to tell them, look, I had these things happen years ago. And they said, well, you need to write to this person and call this person. And by the time I got a hold of them, they said, we're sorry, but the building has been demolished. So I was just a little bit late, I guess. But
now I'm curious, with the building being demolished, that doesn't necessarily, as you know, that doesn't necessarily clear the land of any spirits. Sometimes if you build over that area, that paranormal history continues. Do you know, did they build over that land? Did they do something with that land?
Well, I was told they were demolishing that building, and it was a huge building. I could actually send you pictures of it, to make room for a new casino. So whether they went and done that, I haven't been out to that area since the last time I was there to see the building, so I honestly don't know. But I know that even demolishing that building could have stirred up a lot of activity. And I haven't read anything about construction problems, or if they even put a building on there for this casino or whatever they wanted to build. But so I'll have to look into it and just to see. But
it would be interesting putting the darker energy of a casino on top of the paranormal history that had happened there to see what exactly manifests when everything is said and done.
Yeah, it's an interesting formula.
Yeah, it is.
And that's kind of one of the things that just really bothers me is when you have a really big haunted location that you can get some really good data from, and they kind of see it as an eyesore and they tear it down. Why not sell it? Why not renovate it? I mean, it was a beautiful building. Why not try and make it something better? I don't know what it cost to put that building up, but I'm sure when it was at the time it was constructed, it was probably a large amount of money. So but it's gone, a lot like a lot of other places.
So you've had this experience with the paranormal, and at this point you've had the stuff scared out of you, to put it mildly. But you're fascinated. I take it at this point you're fascinated, and you want to move forward with what exactly you've seen. Would you say you were more titillated than scared at that point, or more fascinated than scared? And at that point, your curiosities are piqued? I
think as I got older, the fascination became more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that, like, even though you're scared to death, you're going to do it. Like the first time you want to get on that big roller coaster, or, the first time you ask somebody out or whatever, the fear is there, but you're completely motivated by something else. It's a passion. It's a wanting. It's whatever it is to you. That for me was, and at the time that I started, I didn't know how I was going to go about getting those answers, but I knew that there was people out there, scientifically driven people, that were going out and investigating and going to these places, and they were, getting some results. So I said, well, you know what? If they can do that, I can completely do that. And like I said, I got started. I got my flashlight and my 35 millimeter camera and a couple of devices and an analog audio recorder, and I just went out. And I got started in January of 2000. It's kind of like my anniversary date.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started going to local places, abandoned places, cemeteries, anything that I could find, because at that time here, there wasn't a big community for the paranormal. There was very, very few, maybe 2 or 3 teams in the state that was doing it. And, you didn't have a lot of the TV shows and, Ghost Hunters and all of those. They didn't exist back then. So you really didn't have a network to really, get a hold of people and learn and kind of explore other methodology for investigating. So, like I said, I went out. I had a couple people that, had gone out with me. And then About 4 years later, I got with a former colleague of mine, and I was telling him about what I did, and he was so intrigued, and he was like, hey, let's put together a team, and let's, start going out and finding, better places and bigger places. So that's kind of the first time that I had put an actual group together, that I was a director, and we had, there was 3 other members other than myself, and we started going out and meeting people and, going to, like I said, bigger sites and bigger names. We did traveling. And so it kind of opened the door for me for opportunity, I guess. And, I documented several of the places in the book as well. And it was just kind of a big change for me. And then back in 2005 was the second time, I guess you could say, I got the stuff scared out of me.
Okay.
And that was kind of the turning point when, if there was any doubt in my mind that the paranormal being real, it was gone. Mm-hmm. Because I had such an experience that I said, there's no way you can tell me there is an explanation for what just happened. And that was later proven through pictures that I did not see at the time I had the experience. And when I actually saw the pictures, and I do have them, and unfortunately they were not good enough quality to put in the book, but when I saw those pictures, it was almost as frightening, if not more, than the actual event itself, because I knew that was just more validation for what had happened.
What happened?
And, what's that?
What happened? What happened to you?
Well, what happened was I had joined an organization that took part in a long-term research project, okay? And the site was an abandoned hospital locally here in Oklahoma. And I had wrote about it in the book. And, the first time that I saw that building, I was so captivated and just so mesmerized by it. I told my colleague, I said, I'm going to get in this building. I said, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I said, I just know I'm going to go inside this building. I didn't know why at the time. And, not only did the building have my name on it, but I just knew that there was something inside that building. I couldn't prove anything. And about, a year from saying that, we got accepted into the organization. And I actually got to go in for the first time. And it became an every weekend deal. Every Saturday night we would meet at this location. We would go through, we would do our sweeps and collect all the data. And then, at the end of the night, we would do a kind of a group sit down and set things out and monitor and wait and observe. And that's just what we did. And we did it, every weekend. Now, some could say, well, you had so much activity at this place because you were there more than you were all these other places. And that's probably true. But it was the nature of the activity that I witnessed there that was so amazing. I just couldn't really put another word to it. And getting into the experience, one night I had arrived, and it was just a typical Saturday, and I asked one of the guys that was heading up the team, I said, is there any way you could lock me in this building by myself and just kind of leave me to myself? And he was like, yeah. He's like, we'll lock you in and we'll go to the store and hang out. You just tell me whenever you want to get out. And I said, okay. And I was like, I'm just going to walk around and just kind of, get a feel for the place. No big deal. I didn't bring any equipment. I wasn't there to investigate. I just wanted to explore. Mm-hmm. So he locked me in, and of course, you have to start in the basement, and you go up the floors, and it was a 5-story hospital. So I got up to the 4th floor, and I'm walking around and I've got the flashlight and listening. And, you know, up to this point, I didn't really hear anything. And I got all the way down, almost to the end of the floor, where there was a section cut out that they used the operating room, and there was a couple of other rooms in there across the hall. And I was just standing there, you know, and I had my flashlight down, and I'm just talking away, you know, somebody here, can you please make a noise? And, you know, you heard a thump or something in the corner, and look over, and I'm like, thank you, that was you. And, you know, I'm still talking and looking down, and I stopped, and I looked up, and back against the wall in front of me, I saw a blurry image of a woman. I stopped, and I look at it again, you know, because it's blurry. And I have really good vision. I've never wore glasses, you know. I never had any problems with my eyes or anything like that. And, you know, at the time, it looked like she was in a white dress, okay, from what I could see. And I'm looking, and I'm shining, you know, shining up the light. Nothing's there. I'm looking down, and I can still see her. And I was so confused because I'd never been that directly approached with something that, you know, this was a first-time situation for me. And so I almost had to take a step back, and I said, you know, hey, I can see you. I said, I'm not here to you know, disturb you or bother you. I'm just here to walk around and whatever. And, you know, if there's something I can do to help you, you know, please. I mean, I was just saying all of this stuff because I didn't know what to say. So it was almost like it was just coming out of my mouth. And all of a sudden, it was like her arm had come up to me, and she started, I use this word, projecting toward me, because it wasn't a walk. It was like a shift, almost like not moving, but it's coming towards you. Okay. Is the only way I could really describe it. And when that happened, I immediately got this overwhelming wave of apprehension and uncomfortable, and I was scared all of a sudden. It was like I was being told that you don't belong up here, and I didn't hear this. This wasn't verbal. You know, you don't belong here. I don't want you here. You need to go. And I started backing up, and I said, look, I feel like I've upset you, and I didn't mean to do that. And I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go back to our phone phone, and that's, you know, I'm leaving. So I turned around, and at this time, I'd say she was probably 6 to 10 feet away from me when I turned around, because there was 2 exits to that floor. There were 2 stairwells. One was past her, and I wasn't going that way. Mm-hmm. The other one was behind me. So I 180. I started walking. I never turned around. I didn't run, but I walked very quickly. And I hit that stairwell door, and I started going down the stairs. I got maybe a whole floor. I was probably between the second and third floor when I felt something right behind me. Now, I didn't stop. I didn't say anything. I'm still going down the stairs, but I could feel like someone was riding my shoulders, and I felt and heard a breath which, to me, it sounded female, okay, and it was very light, but I could hear it, and it was cold. It wasn't like freezing Arctic, you know, sub-zero temperature, but it was cold enough. I mean, this was like July or August. That building gets extremely hot. So any cool breeze you feel, you're going to feel, you know. Mm-hmm. So I'm going down, and I barreled through the basement door, and I stood there, and I kind of caught my breath because I was, you know, my heart was beating really fast, and it took me a while to kind of gather myself. And the whole time I'm kind of looking back at the door, expecting something to come through the door, and it didn't. And, you know, I had this moment of realization where I kind of said, you know, what are you doing? You know, that was probably the most impressive event you're ever going to have for the rest of your life. And you ran, and you came down here, and she's probably gone. And, my conscience was kind of saying, well, you need to go back up there. And the other half was going, no, you don't. You just need to get out of here. Yeah. And so, I kind of battled with it for a minute or two or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I said, I'm just going to get out of here. I'm just going to go outside. I'm going to gather myself. I'm not going to worry about it. And I started down the basement hallway. Well, all of a sudden, and let me explain this, the building was kind of L-shaped. So I was walking toward the exit, but behind me there's another hall, which goes around and curves to the right. And in the basement, those rooms were used as the morgue, for the autopsies and things like that. Well, as I started making my way down, I heard a voice, and it said, come here, just like that. And I stopped, and I went, stop. And it didn't say, come here. It said, come here. I mean, just like that. And so I kind of went back, and I was like, well, maybe I'm hearing something outside, because you could hear outside people, cars, and, people were by the door talking. You could hear them talking. So I was like, well, maybe, I'm hearing something outside, and I'm still kind of battling with it. And I heard it again. Come here, come here. So I was like, then I said, okay, someone snuck in here, and they're trying to scare me and whatever. So I said, okay, yeah, I'm coming. And I walk down the hall, I turn the corner, and all of the doors are open, okay? So there's no cabinets for anyone to hide in. There's no place that people could be that I couldn't see them. So I went through every room, all the way down, nothing. I got back to the hall, I'd hear it again, only it's coming from the other end of the building, where I was walking previously to. And so I walked down there. I checked every room, both directions. I went back and forth, 2 or 3 times. And by the time, about the third or fourth or whatever time that I went back, I got so frustrated that I stopped literally in the middle of the hall, and I was just like, oh! And I heard this. And I said, okay, I'm done. I'm finished. And I went and banged on the door, and they let me out. And they said, are you okay? And I said, I don't want to talk about it. So, because, there was a lot of reasons. For one, I hadn't really accepted that for myself. Mm-hmm. And I had to take time to kind of diagnose what just happened to me. And, we had just recently kind of joined them, and I didn't want to be the guy that's like, oh, I just, came in and all this stuff happened. And, so I kind of kept it to myself. Not the fear that they wouldn't believe me, just that, it was kind of more of a personal thing for me. And I just really kept it private, I guess. And then I'd say it was probably about 6 months later, I had kind of joined the group formally, and we were doing investigations and things. And I was over at my former homeless house, and he was doing some things about the hospital. And it was a really big. We had message boards and webcams in there all the time. And, it was just amazing from all the evidence and things that they had gotten out. He's like, yeah, we got a couple of pictures that one of our cam viewers had sent us. And I looked at that picture, and I just froze up, because I knew what I saw in that picture was exactly what I saw that night in that building. And I couldn't even say anything. I was just like, that was validation for me, And then I saw the other picture in the basement where she was standing, and of course she was standing right in that corner where I heard that voice that night before I walked out of the building. So that to me was the kind of the breaking point for me, that I said, you know what, it was motivating for me. It was like, you know what, I know all this is real. I know everything's not real. I know there's a lot of things out there that can be explained. I know that there's a lot of unknown scientific things out there that aren't yet explained. Mm-hmm. I know everything is not spirits and ghosts and demons and other things, but it was enough driving force for me that I said, I'm going to go, and I'm not going to stop. And I'm going to do this for however many years I have, to live. And I had a lot of goals with this, and this book is actually probably the start of one of those goals. And we're also ending production on a TV show that we're filming next month in Tombstone.
Oh, in Tombstone. Oh, great. Okay.
We're going to be at the Birdcage. We're wrapping up production. We're filming the last episode of the show in April, and I don't know if you really knew this or not, but you talked about this book. This book is actually the first in a series.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning. Okay. So it's going to be. My intention is 12 volumes. There was a lot that they cut out of the book, for size and different things that I'm going to put in future books. And so there's a lot more to come. There's a lot of things that's happened. I've been really fortunate to have worked with a lot of good people in a lot of different places and different with different organizations. And I've been to a lot of the big name haunted places,
mm-hmm.
Across the country. And so I'm very thankful for that.
Well, Logan, when we come back, we'll talk about some of those places. And I also want to talk about a little bit about parapsychology and what got you into that aspect. I know that you said that you had this experience that pretty much cemented your belief, but we'll talk a little bit about the other side of it and needing to explain the other part away, the other things that aren't so much ghosts and demons and whatnot, and needing to get down to that other side of stuff as well. Our guest is Logan Corelli.
Not a ghost yet.
Not a ghost yet. No, thank God. The name of the book is The Haunted Heart of America, like Logan said, part of a 12-volume series that he is working on. In-depth investigations of the Villisca Axe Murder House, Myrtles Plantation, and other frightful sites. Available right now on Amazon.com, both in paperback and Kindle form. You can follow the link. We'll have a link up both on the description of this podcast that you're listening to right now and on darknessradio.com. You can follow that link to Amazon.com, and you can click on that link and follow the link and get the book. It is available right now, like we said, on paperback and Kindle. So by all means, please go pick that up during the break. When we return, we'll talk to Logan a little bit about parapsychology and how he decided that he wanted to pursue parapsychology. We'll talk to him a little bit about the different locations that he's investigated and which one chilled him to the bone besides the ones that he's already described. We'll talk about that with Logan Corelli when we come back next on the best in Paranormal Talk Radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.
Beyond the Darkness.
Welcome back to the best in Paranormal Talk Radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm Tim Dennison for Dave Schrader. Tomorrow, folks, we'll be doing a best of. We're doing a special 5-day week this week. So we'll have a best of for you tomorrow, actually. So they're bringing you a special 5-day week this week. And then Friday, we'll have an all-new episode for you, including a brand new Theater of the Mind, that coming up on Friday. Our guest tonight is Logan Corelli. The book is The Haunted Heart of America, in-depth investigations of the Villisca Axe Murder House, Myrtles Plantation, and other frightful sites. Like we said, it's available at Amazon.com. You can find the link on the description of this podcast or at darknessradio.com. That link will take you right to Amazon and right to the page where the book is available, and you can order it right off that site. So be sure you grab a copy of the book. Very interesting stuff, Logan, and lots of good stuff at that in the book. I want to ask you here, not only in your 17 years of experience do you have the investigative stuff, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in the second half of the show, but what I find intriguing, a lot of old school investigators, especially those that investigate with the Hans Holzer method, do so with a parapsychology background, or at least try to study some sort of parapsychology. And I guess I would ask you, what drove you to want to study parapsychology? I know that a lot of investigators these days kind of, if they form a team, they say, well, we're going to grab somebody who maybe specializes in psychology or may have a background in it. We're not so much going to, bother ourselves with it. But what made you in particular decide that parapsychology was something that you were interested in and wanted to study?
Well, I guess in the beginning, I kind of saw it as the most valid scientific study for the paranormal. I didn't really see it as an outlet for ghost hunting or investigating or things like that. But when I was kind of introduced to it, I was reading about the different elements. And, a lot of people, when either they don't know what parapsychology is or they assume parapsychology is all about ghosts and hauntings and things like that. And what I discovered was that it was more a lot about the mind, psychic abilities, things like that kind of drove me more into the field of study. And, throughout my, almost 18 years, I've had the privilege of working with psychics and mediums and things like that. So that contributed a lot to it, too. Like I said before, I don't ever really consider myself to have those types of abilities or things that a lot of other people are blessed with. But I was interested. And, watching a lot of the shows, I saw a lot of the parapsychologists on TV, and I saw, the equipment they were using in these houses and different things. And I said, you know what, that looks very credible. That looks very scientific. That looks like something that, I would like to explore more about. And then it kind of shifted, and it got more into, like poltergeist, as I mentioned before, with psychokinetic, abilities and things. And not just with me, but it was just something that I was really interested in, to study. And as going on, we used a lot of equipment and different things with that. But I'd say most of it was more just an interest to me. It's something that I really wanted to study. I was also a psychology major for clinical psychology. So, that was another thing. And I guess I wanted to have both, the study of the mind and the study of the paranormal. So that was mostly the driving force to me. Was it just seemed credible and valid, I guess.
Now,
would be.
I know your book is focused mainly on haunted locations, but have you done some private houses, some investigations having to do with private locations? And if so,
yeah, actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was going to add that that's actually the last chapter of the book, this residence.
I'm sorry, you were kind of muddy there. What did you say?
The last chapter in the book, aside from the conclusion, is a set of residentials that we did, really active residentials. So, yeah, there was a few things there. And the only reason that I had put those in, a lot of people think because they were all in the same city, but that actually doesn't have anything to do with it. It's the things that we kind of experienced there. And, when I went back talking about psychokinesis and the things that had happened at the hotel and different things, and I had mentioned there was a couple of other events that took place that could have contributed to that for me, with the ability. Well, one of the residentials is related to that, so that's why I put it in the book. But yes, there's a little bit of everything. You've got houses, hotels, hospitals, bed and breakfast. Kind of a little bit of everything, and that's just with this one book. So.
Now, I don't know if you find this or not. I know there are some investigators that when they do private residences, they find there's a bit of a slippery slope when it comes to private residences and having to deal with the psychological aspects of hauntings and people's mindsets. and having to do with psychological disorders. Were you finding yourself when you were doing private investigations that you were running into more psychological disorders than you were actual hauntings, or what was the ratio there as far as you were concerned?
Well, there's a lot of everything. And yes, there was a lot of psychosis. There was, of course, you can't automatically discredit that because, people with mental disorders experience paranormal too. But, it's definitely a factor when we're going in to investigate, especially when you're dealing with things like obsessive compulsive disorders and delusions and things like that. I mean, you kind of have to weigh, what's real, what's not. And we never really came across somebody that was just blatantly, schizophrenic or we were never really, worried for our safety or anything like that. But we have to take every case individually. Most of the time, there were children there or teenagers, somebody that was also having experiences. So it wasn't just like one person living alone and they were, seeing all these shadows and different things. I mean, there always seemed to be at least one credible witness that was saying, yes, I did experience this. And at that point, we have to go in and set up and see if we, happen to capture anything paranormal. And, that doesn't always happen with one trip because a lot of the times, even people, that have disorders, they'll still call and say, oh, it's back. You need to come back. And, you go back, there's just nothing there. So at some point, you kind of have to say, well, we kind of, reached our limit as far as what we can do and take it from there and move on to something else. But a lot of the times, and I really didn't see this being the case in, here in Oklahoma, not to say anything bad about that, but I didn't really feel there'd be a lot of, active houses and things that there were. And, the biggest problem was that, it was more sporadic than anything. And, sometimes we'd come out and something would happen and then we'd be like, oh, we got all this evidence, we need to come back, and then nothing, and then, we go back and something else would happen. And we kind of have to take it, like I said, every case is individual. And, is something specific causing this to happen? Is there something in the house that's causing it to happen? Is it attached to something? Is it attached to someone? Is it something with the house? Is it something with the land? Is it something that they brought in? Did they summon something there? Or bring, there's so many possibilities that we kind of just had to go in and kind of do an analysis and see what we could find out. And, sometimes we didn't catch anything, and, it was a really quiet night. And I'm always the type of person that I don't always believe just because you go somewhere once and you don't get anything that it's just not haunted. I like to at least go a couple of times, especially if, you have homeowners that are very sincere, they're very scared, they're very worried, they're very uncomfortable, and they're not, suffering from some sort of mental disorder. Something is scaring these people, and whether it's something paranormal or it's something that's yet to be identified that's not paranormal, it needs to be looked at and it needs to be taken care of if possible. So I had a lot of people that was really terrified, and going back to the book, I know I do that a lot, but one of the cases of the residentials was a woman that was a sister of a coworker of mine, and I could really hear it in her voice. She had called me, and the first time I got the referral, she was like, "Oh, my sister's got this old house, and that's 100 years old, and there's like ghosts in there." And I'm like, "Okay, well, that I talked to them over the phone, and they kind of told me, yeah, our kids are seeing these the shadows and different things in the house. They got the toys are going off and all this." And so I'm like, okay, that's great. I'll come and check it out. And then, they ended up canceling the investigation, and I really kind of forgot about them. And then one night I was coming home and I get this random call from this woman, and she's just like, "Oh, Logan, you've got to help me. You need to come out here right away." And I'm like, who are you? You know, and then she was like, oh, I'm, you know, the sister. Okay, I remember now. And, I mean, she was just so terrified that something was going to happen to her kids. And I'm like, you know, your kids are safe. I don't think anything's going to harm them or whatever. And I said, I promise I will come out tomorrow night, because it was really late and work and everything. I mean, if it was a true emergency, I would have went anyway. But I really didn't feel like they were like truly in danger. I think they were just being scared by something.
Okay.
And so I said, don't worry. I promise you we will come out tomorrow and I will look at it. And we did. And we just kind of did a prelim, as we called it. We went out and, you know, we talked to the homeowners, and very calm. You know, everything seemed good. And we said, well, we're just going to go around the house and check things out and maybe take some pictures or something and get some readings. And we'll come back this weekend and do a full, you know, overnight investigation thing. That was one of the few times I was actually challenged by a spirit through EVP. And I actually we were going up to the second floor where the kid's bedroom was, and my colleague, Philip, he was in the bathroom across the hall, and he started, his equipment started going off. He started getting these readings of this high EMS, and he said the temperatures drastically went down, and yelling for me, Logan, you gotta come in here, And I didn't put my bag down, and I was like, wait, hold on a minute. So I put my stuff down, and I go in there, and I'm looking over her shoulder, and, you know, when I go in there, everything just like stops. He was just like, I don't understand, you know, this was happening, and I was feeling this. And I said, look, you know, don't worry about it. I said, whoever it is, I said, I'll catch them tomorrow. And we went and finished our thing, and we said goodbye. Thank you for letting us come out. And we came back home, and he dropped me off, and I was getting ready for bed, and it was about 12:30, and he called me, and I thought I left something in his car, like my keys or something. He goes, you have to hear this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I was listening to the EVP, and there was this voice, and I'm like, you know, you need to sleep. You know, we need to do that later. It's late, you know, he's calling me and telling me, he's like, no, you don't understand. And he played that clip back. And what had happened was, you go through the whole event, and I go in there, and and I said, I'll catch him tomorrow. And there's like this pause. There's 2 to 3 second pause, and this old man's voice just comes out of the silence. He says, no, I'll catch you tomorrow. And I said, okay. So we went out, and, you know, it got really intense, you know. So, you know, a lot of things happen. I've been to hundreds of residential cases, and, you know, no two are alike exactly. Everything's different. You know, you have different people. You have, some of them have pets, some of them have children, some of them, you know, just have a couple of people or one person there. Big houses, small houses, a lot of different things and different activity, you know. So I don't really think there's, you know, one specific way, I guess, to, you know, investigate residential houses specifically. We just kind of go out and assess the situation, try and, you know, calm the homeowner down if possible, and kind of go from there. I've never had to directly tell a homeowner, you know, I would recommend, you know, seek psychiatric help, even though, you know, that might have been the case. But a lot of the times, the problems that we run into really isn't of mental disorders and people's psychosis and things like that. It's more of like, you know, you go into a house and 10 people are there, and, you know, everybody's being loud, and they're like, you know, we're going to need this space for a while. Mm-hmm. And, you know, everybody wants to be on TV, and they're partying or whatever. And so, you know, it's that kind of problem.
Yeah.
That, you know, you're kind of like, look, you know, we've got something serious to do, and, you know,
yeah,
we can come back later, you know. So
is that common? Is that more? Let me ask you this real quick, Logan. I know it probably, I would say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that problem might have been more common than people would have known, thinking maybe ghost hunters, ghost adventures, somebody was going to show up. Even if you called your local investigator to come over, they thought maybe they were going to drag Zach or Grant or Jay along with them. to come investigate. Are you finding that dying down now, or is it just, do people still assume that they're going to bring TV cameras with them?
Well, it's not as much of a thing now. Really, I mean, when we were filming The Haunted, it was every time. You know, it was like, oh my God, I saw y'all on The Haunted, and are y'all going to do like our house? Are we a candidate for that? And you know, are you filming now? Because we always had video cameras, and they're like, is this for TV? And they'd be running and putting on makeup and doing. I'm like, no, we're not filming anything right now. I said they have their own production people, and you know, we would never do that without, you know, it's a long process. So no, we're not filming for TV. But some of them will still ask, you know, and a lot of I don't want to say a lot of the shows went away, but there's still, you know, paranormal shows on. And I think here it's more of like the local news, because you'll find, you know, the local news will do stories on this haunted place or this haunted restaurant, or, you know, sometimes you'll see a residential case, but not too often, not unless it's something really extreme or something that would feel is newsworthy, I guess.
It is pretty rare that the big shows now, or any show really, any paranormal show is doing residential places, I think, because of the liability. I think mainly it's just bigger buildings now.
Well, and, I don't want to really say that a lot of the times they do the residentials because it's potentially demonic. Yeah. But that's what I've seen with a lot of shows. It's like, you know, you go into a house and all of a sudden they're being attacked and they're being scratched, and there's something, you know, evil there, and they need a priest, and, you know, and that's like really not always the case. You know, there's a lot of good residential cases that are non-demonic and really haunted that are just as worthy of TV as those. And I kind of feel also, and this is just my own opinion, that kind of paints a bad picture with a lot of people, because they assume that it's always like that, I think. And if that's all they see over and over and over, you know, every time you go to a house, they're like, oh, is there a demon? What happened? Did you get hurt? And I'm like, no, that doesn't always happen that way. And I'm not trying to attack the credibility of any of the shows. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying that's what tends to get the public attention for the media, is all of these cases that, you know, this person's possessed and we need a priest, and, you know, the house is haunted and we think it's demonic, and, you know, you just don't see, you know, average Joe's haunted house anymore, or residence, unless it's something so extreme that it's tearing down walls or doing something that's really big. And I don't really think I've ever seen anything like that myself personally, to where residentials will be getting that kind of attention. But they do, you know, I would not be opposed if my show, and the kind of the premise of my show, it's called Paranormal America, okay? And the idea is every episode is a different state, so it's like a traveling paranormal show. Okay. So it's not like, you know, we're always in Oklahoma, we're always in Texas, we're always in, you know, New Mexico or whatever. So we kind of go in different places, but I'd never rule out going to a residence. In fact, one of the places on my show that we went to was a residence. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called the Sally House. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a house, and there's no resident. There's no people living there now. But so yeah, I do feel that way, and it is unfortunate that you know, a lot of the residences, because I think the people that live there, you know, they're around this 24/7. So they have way more experiences than any investigator is going to have. They'll have a lot more stories that I think should be told. And, you know, of course, you're always going to get people that will say, oh, no, they're crazy, or they're lying, or that's not real, or whatever. But I believe there's a lot of valid cases that people live with day to day, and some of it may be benign, and some of it may be, you know, more extreme. But I would not be opposed to telling their story, or investigating for that matter. I don't think I've ever really turned down a client just because, somebody said their house wasn't haunted. So, but that's just me.
I want you to finish this sentence for me, Logan. And this is going to be kind of a weird sentence. I don't think anyone's been asked this on the show.
First time for everything.
Blank is the craziest thing I've ever seen a ghost use for a haunting. It can be an object, it can be a person, it can be a dog, it can be a whatever. But blank is the craziest thing I've ever seen a ghost use for a haunting.
That almost has to be a tie. But I'll give you the one that I was talking about earlier with the residents. It's a monster truck.
A monster truck?
A monster truck.
Okay.
Yes.
What happened?
And the second one would be a clock.
A clock.
But the monster truck, the monster truck came from one of the residences that I wrote about. And you remember we were talking about the psychokinesis and things like that. Well, I'll give you a brief history about this truck.
Okay.
So we get this call to go up to this house, and it was referred to us by another group. They didn't have time or whatever. So we said, yeah, we'll go out there. And we met this lady, and she had 2 kids, and we're asking her, what's going on with your house? What are you seeing? What's going on? And one of the things she told me, she said, my young son, one of his toys will come on at night when he's in bed asleep, and it scares him. And I said, okay, well, what is it? And she showed it to us. It was a grave digger, one of the electronic trucks that's got the buttons, and it, it moves and talks and does different things. And she said, we've tried everything. We've taken the batteries out. We've put it in the closet, and somehow it ends up going across the room, and, it scares him. So I said, oh, okay. And, actually the first investigation that we actually had with this truck was late one night, and this was when that sound manifested that followed me around for like 6 months. But the truck didn't move. And so I told the woman, I said, would you mind if I took this truck with me? I'd like to experiment with it and examine it and see if I can, get it to do something. She said, oh, it's yours. Take it out of here. You can have it. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, thank you. So I took the truck, and I put it down, and I, put tests on it and ran meters and checked for energies and EVP and, played soft music to it and did all this stuff, and it would not do anything. Quiet, nothing. I said, well, maybe it just had to be in the house in order to activate and, and get worked up or whatever. So I took the truck, I threw it in my trunk, and I forgot about it. So things tend to happen when I forget about stuff. So one day I'm driving, and I went to a store to cash a check, and I'm in the parking lot. I'm leaving the store, and I'm driving through the parking lot, and that truck busted from my whole back seat came down. That truck went up over the passenger, over the side, the middle part of the car, and landed in the passenger floorboard. And it was going off, grave digger. And I stopped. I hit the brakes, and I'm looking down at it, and I'm going, "What the hell?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, what is this thing doing? And so I stopped, and I parked the car, and I went and got the thing, and it went off, and I opened it up, and it had no batteries.
None.
And I called my colleague, and I go, Philip, that truck just busted my back seat, and it started going off, and it's in my car. What do I do with it? And he said, I don't know, put it back in the trunk. I said, what if it busts the seat again? I said, it'll be okay. Just put it in there so you can get it home and see what you can do with it. So again, I take the thing, even though it scared the living daylights out of me in the middle. I mean, at least I wasn't on the highway or, driving and had a wreck or something.
Right.
So I take the thing home, and I poke around at it again, and nothing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put it back in my trunk. And one day when I'm driving, it's going to bust my seat down again, and I'm going to be ready. I kept an audio recorder in my car, and I had everything just ready to go. Well, long story short, that car literally disappeared. and I have no idea where that car is today, or that truck.
Really?
So, vanished. Somebody took it, stole it. It drove itself out of my trunk and to somebody else's car. I don't know. But I swear to you today, I have no idea where that truck is. True story.
Grave diggers on the loose, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Interesting.
If you ever see one just driving on its own down the road, it's probably mine. Or it wasn't mine. I guess it was the one given to me, but whatever. So, yeah, grave digger truck. And like I said, the clock was a close second. And I didn't really touch on that in the book because it was a chapter that was written about my house, because I'd had so much spiritual activity in my house that I wrote a whole chapter on it, and they had, they cut it, but you put it in the book or something. So we were trying to keep the best in the,
Sure.
in the first. But the clock actually came from a residence, not one that I had wrote about, but one that I had investigated about 12 years ago, give or take. And we met these really nice people, and they had activity in their house, and they were, hearing things, and things were going on. And we actually caught an eerie whistling when we were filming in there, and the lights went on by itself, and really bizarre. But from what they had told me when they moved into this house, this old, and this was an old clock. I mean, this thing was probably 100 years old, and it was a really small, it wasn't like a big clock. It was like a miniaturized grandfather clock, but small. I'd say, maybe a foot and a half tall, something like that. Mm-hmm. And they claimed that when they moved into the house, everything in the attic was empty, but this clock was right in the middle of the attic, just sitting there, almost like it was left on purpose. So they associated their activity with this clock. And, we, again, investigated. The clock was there, and I had asked them, may I take it home, which I have to stop doing that.
Yeah.
But, I said, may I borrow your clock? Yeah, take it. Yeah, sure. I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep it for a little while. Oh, no, go ahead. Well, I thought I was going to keep it for a little while. So, I bring this thing home, and I put it on the dresser. Things just almost immediately started happening. I'd be in my bathroom, in my bedroom, and I'd hear people walking around, open the door, walking there. The door to the clock, it had a glass door which covered the face. It would unlatch and open mysteriously and hit things on my dresser. One time I came home, I was on my lunch break at work, and I came here I had to do something on the computer, and I was at my desk, and something, I don't remember what happened. Something with the clock. I made a comment to the clock. It was just pretty derogatory, but something started shaking my doorknob on my bedroom violently, like someone was shaking it trying to get in, but it was locked. So I'm like, got my gun, walked around, nobody. Everything's locked. Nothing's in there. Maybe it wasn't a clock. It could have been something unrelated, but it happened it happened when the clock was here. So it's definitely a suspect. So the last thing was I was going to bed, and I had the clock up here, and I decided I was going to wind the clock because, it had a winding function where it would spin, and I guess it was broken. It's like it would misfire, and it would lock up. So, they had told me that when they first showed it to us. So I was like, I'm going to wind that clock and see what happens. So I wound the clock. I went to bed at 2:30 or 1:30, excuse me. At exactly 2:30, I woke up, and there were spiders in the room. And I jumped out of bed, and I, got in there, and of course everything was gone. Nothing was there. And the clock started making this noise, just almost like this mechanical, I don't want to say laugh, but it was definitely something with a rhythm, and I'd never heard it do it before, and I asked the people, they had never heard it before. So the next day, I called them, I said, I'm going to bring the clock back, and I don't ever want to see it again. And now I told my colleague, Kathy, about it. She was like, "Oh my God, I have to have the clock." And so now I don't get it either. But
now, Logan,
I have to have this clock. So now
she
has it. It's in her possession.
Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Now, the clock is, if it would have been the clock shaking your door as you're pulling the gun, if you would have opened up the door and there's the clock standing there, would you have pulled an Elvis and just pulled the gun out and just shot the clock?
I probably, from instinct, would have slammed the door because the clock was on my dresser. If the clock would have moved from my dresser to the floor, I'd have been out of there. It's like it's like one time. Going back to the truck, I know I keep going back and forth, but remember I told you that noise that manifested? In when we were examining the truck the first night. Well, we were in a residence completely away from where they were, and we were in the dark, and that noise came up out of nowhere. And my colleague goes, "If I turn on the light and that truck is in this living room, I am leaving. I am gone." Because we associated it with the truck. And of course, well, we didn't find out till later it was something else. But yeah, I don't know how I really would have reacted to that. I was never really threatened. But another thing, and I didn't mention this either, when we first picked it up and were taking it home, we were driving down the street on the way to the highway to go back home, and we saw this long, looked like it wasn't a dog, it was a lot longer than a dog, running across the side of the road, and it actually came and met parallel with us and actually hit the car. And I'm like, "Oh, something hit us." And we looked back, that thing just shook its head off and went off, gone. Again, I can't blame the clock, but the clock was there.
Yeah.
So, could it have been just some random long animal thing, panther? I don't know. I've never seen a panther in the middle of Oklahoma City, but I guess you never know. People let crocodiles out and stuff. So, and I'm not saying it was paranormal,
right?
But I'm just saying it was things like that we kind of said, yeah, that's weird, but that's a little too weird from,
right.
That we can say, oh, we have this clock and now these weird things are happening. Or, have this truck and things are, busting through my back seat. So, and I completely believe with haunted objects. I don't really know. I can't really say I believe they're possessed. I believe objects have attachments, and I think those attachments can be good or bad. A lot of the times I think and it's just a personal opinion, with a lot of toys and things, it could be younger spirits playing games. I don't think it's malicious, but I don't think it's, I think it's reacting. I think it's something that's actually reacting to our behavior, our requests, the things that we do. But yes, there's several there's several objects out there I do believe have attachments to them. So, and that was two of them. But I'd have to say the truck actually got my vote for the sentence. I'm going to go with the truck.
The truck. Yeah, that's a very interesting object indeed to be focusing ghostly energy through. That's for sure. Let me ask you this, because in the book you've got different locations, of course, that you're focused on in the book, and of course the name of the book is the Haunted Heart of America: In-Depth Investigations of the Villisca Axe Murder House, Myrtles Plantation, and Other Frightful Sights. Give me the one in the book that I guess affected you the most. Not the one that scared you the most, because that's a common question, or the one that terrified you, or the one that affected you, the one that when you got done writing, the one that when you reflect back on the different experiences you had, is the one that you take home with you and you say, you know what, this one really gets to me, and this is why.
Well, there could be a few. I know we talked about the Guthrie Hospital, which was the big one, and we talked about my first experience. Both those were very extreme, and they stayed with me. But actually, this book it's actually kind of divided, okay? The first half of the book is, you've got Villisca, you've got the Myrtles, you've got the real big names, Crescent Hotel, you've got the St. James Hotel, those types of places. And the second half of the book is actually all locations right here in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So, that's a lot of local haunts, if you will. Mm-hmm. And those were the places that I went out to more, obviously. And things that kind of, I guess, brought me along to where I was. I had a lot of good, fond memories there, met a lot of good people. But, I guess I can't really pick one exactly to say, it kind of affected me. I wrote about the entire city of Guthrie because Guthrie is the most haunted city in the state, in my opinion. And that's because I've been to so many places there, and there's so many haunts, and there's so many things that's happened to me there. But there's one place in particular, and again, I don't consider myself or call myself to be any kind of psychic sensitive or anything like that, but there was a place, there's a bed and breakfast there called the Stone Lion Inn. I don't know if you've heard of it. And I've been going there for years, over 10 years, and I know the owner. She's great, and I've had a lot of good experiences there. But the place is supposed to be haunted by one of the spirits in the house of the little girl. And at one time they thought that they knew who it was, and they came to find out later that it wasn't. It was someone else. But there's this little girl spirit there. And, that was kind of one of the places where I guess I felt very empathic. I was having a lot of these, emotions there, a lot of, sadness at times where you feel like a kid's holding your leg and, kind of following you around. And it was just very emotional, I guess, for me at times, not all the time. But that was one of the few places where I actually had reactions like that, where I felt, I guess, connected, personally connected to one of the spirits there. And the other one would probably be, and I'm just saying this locally, would be the Kitchen Lake Bridge that I wrote about. And that actually kind of spawned from a I guess you'd say an urban legend or something that people had said about, this area, this kind of a secluded area, which was supposedly haunted by this witch entity person, and had a lot of extreme, got some good photographs in there, and actually there's a couple in the book. But the best one, again, I couldn't get in there because of the quality of the picture was, I guess, too low. And it's a picture of my colleague standing there in this form manifesting in front of him, which appears to be this 6 to 6.5 foot figure with its arm reached out like it's about to grab him. And like I said, that's just a few of the things that we had experienced there. But locally, I would say that was probably, those two really had an impact on me. Good memories. As far as the bigger places in the front of the book, I'd have to say probably the Villisca Axe House. Okay. Because we had went there several times, and I also got affected there, but in a different way. Okay. I'm a pretty good sleeper. I can get some good rest and everything, but whenever I would go into that house, something would make me react, and I would end up getting up unconsciously and going to other areas of the house. The first time I went, I actually had to be pulled back to bed because, my colleagues were scared I was going to go get the axe and come after them or something. And I have no recollection of this. And the next time that happened, I actually woke up in the kitchen of the house. And don't know what it is about that place that really causes me to do that. But
do you feel like maybe
that's kind of,
you feel like maybe you might have had a past there, like a past life?
Possibly. I think maybe I could have been connected in some way to some of the victims. I don't know that I'm related to any of them. But as you probably are aware, some people get singled out, and get attachments. Mm-hmm. And, that's happened to me a few times there. But I never felt it was scary or, evil. I mean, a lot of people, they kind of thought that the house was sinister and dark, and I'm not going in there by myself in the dark and whatever. But I never really got it from there. There was a lot of great things that happened. One of my colleagues, who is a very reputable person, I wouldn't call him a total skeptic. He's a believer, but he's not one to, make things up or really say, this is haunted and whatever. I actually heard him scream like a girl, and I thought he was coming through the floor above me when I was in the girls' room. And what he had told me the next day was he was sleeping on the floor, and he was fine until he turned over on his left side, and in which case he made him looking directly under one of the beds, and a little girl came out from under the bed and tried to grab him. And he, was terrified. And earlier that day, on the other bed in that room, it's in the kids' room, we were setting up DVR cameras in there for footage, and the blanket was actually draped onto the floor. So, and I don't remember if it was him, or if it was myself that picked the blanket up to put it back on the bed. But as soon as we did, a ball shot out from under the bed, and we both jumped back because I would swear to you someone was under there. And the last thing I wanted to find was someone hiding under one of those beds in that house.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't begin to know why they're there or what they're doing. So, and it wasn't like the ball rolled out from under the bed. It was like the ball was thrown out from under the bed. And we got back to about the doorway and looked, and of course there's nobody under there. So, we went back and talked to our teammates and was telling them about it. Of course, they asked the question, well, was the blanket somehow under the ball? And when you pulled the blanket, it made the ball? No, the ball was under the bed, and, we're trying to explain this to them. And, we got some good audio and different things. And, of course, the screaming thing happened. And so it's in the book, that and a lot of the other cases there. But I really enjoyed investigating there, got a lot of evidence. I can't say there was one time I went there where nothing happened. I know you go places and nothing happens. It's just, it's just the way that it is. But we've gotten a lot of good evidence out of there. I mean, the ironing board came off the wall and was thrown at one of my investigators. Jeez. On video. I have that on video.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of different types of activity, but I was never, really scared in there. I never was like, oh, the killer's still here. And, I never really got that from the house. I got that it has a very intense energy, okay? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people are intimidated by that energy, just as a human reaction, I guess. Sometimes some people, they go, oh, I don't feel anything, I don't see anything, whatever. But it's different at different times. Being in the house alone is different from being with a group of people. Being upstairs is different from being downstairs. And I actually caught a picture. Actually, let me back up. One of my former investigators / romantic partners got a picture of the house in the room on the first floor where the Soldier girls were sleeping and killed. And I got a picture of what looked like a child's face in the window, or she did. So that just, like I said, added to everything that we've already gotten there. So very intense, great place. Would go back and do it again. So
let me ask you one question about Villisca in closing here, Logan. And I always wonder about famous haunts like Villisca and even the Lizzie Borden house. And this is always a question that runs through my mind repeatedly, and it's this. Do you believe, especially with the parapsychology background, do you believe that when investigators and even hobbyists, let's call some people who investigate hobbyists, when they, and even tourists, when they walk into these houses, do you think the trepidation and fear that they bring in before they even investigate or tour the place feeds the spirits that are in there and gives them energy to continue the haunting that's already established in that location? In other words, are we batteries for these hauntings to keep the hauntings going maybe even longer than they would have had we just left the location alone?
I think that some do. I don't think that's the case with everybody. Everyone has different energy. Everyone projects energy differently. Mm-hmm. And I do completely believe that spirits are energy sponges. They just feed off of it, or interact with it. I've seen equipment drained. I've seen people drained. I've seen people literally get sick out of nowhere and have different effects. So it affects everybody differently. And I think it reacts differently with people. I think that people with a very intimidating energy goes into a place, and you have a spirit in there that's kind of quiet and shy. They're going to kind of veer away from those people and avoid those people. And I think it's kind of the opposite, too. When you have a very menacing or dominating spiritual presence in a place, and I don't want to really say it kind of puts a target on people, but they can kind of weed out and see people that are, I don't want to say weak, but not really scared, I guess, would be a good word. And I think they feed off of fear in some instances. And I'm just talking about spirits. I'm not going into like demonic entities or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So absolutely I do. And I don't think that's what really drives a haunting. I don't think it's really based off people coming in and out or living there, because you have a lot of places that are abandoned that still have active hauntings going on. There's buildings that have no power whatsoever, buildings that are in the middle of nowhere. Now people's presence and things that they bring may add to that, may create more energy to allow them to do more. But I think the haunting exists whether people are there or not. And it definitely could see energy, absolutely. Possible.
Okay.
But like I said, I don't think it's always the case.
Yeah, I've gotten the impression that maybe sometimes we feed into that maybe a little too much, that maybe, and especially people who are new to investigating maybe, or people even who are hobbyists who kind of get a thrill out of the scariness of investigating, I guess, is a good way of putting it.
Right.
They kind of feed into it and maybe even feed the animals at the zoo, so to speak. They, maybe they're feeding each other in a way, and maybe perpetuate that environment even longer than maybe it would have had it just been left a sterile environment to die out. Just a theory, I guess.
Could
just
be.
A theory.
But I think that's a lot too. When people go into places and they start remodeling, they start demolishing, I think they kind of awaken a lot of that dormant energy that has kind of fizzled out, if you will, mm-hmm. or stirred up. And I think with the people's own energy that they bring in, it could create, I don't want to use the term create a haunting, but definitely contribute to the activity. I'll say that. So that's why, I have people that said, why would this place be haunted? It's never had there's never been ghosts here before, and no one died here, and and that's just like I tell them, it's one of the possibilities.
Right.
Can it be proven? No, but it is a theory, and I do believe it's a valid one.
Right.
So, until we get to the point where we can have a more conclusive definition or explanation, I think we have to count that. And again, that's just my opinion. So,
right. Logan Corelli, I want to thank you very much for being with us today. The book is The Haunted Heart of America, In-Depth Investigations of the Villisca Axe Murder House, Myrtles Plantation, and Other Frightful Sights. It's available at Amazon.com, both on paperback and Kindle. There is a link in the description of this podcast as well as at darknessradio.com. Logan, do you have a website that you want people to check out as well for the paranormal group?
Actually, it's still being worked on, so it's not yet.
Okay. All right.
But, I'll have it out as soon as I can. The group is Woodlands Paranormal OKC, just for reference.
Okay. All right. And again, folks, pick up a copy of the book. Follow the links here on this podcast and at darknessradio.com. Pick up a copy of the book. Logan Corelli, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you very much. And folks, we want you to tune in tomorrow, a very special Throwback Thursday episode here on Beyond the Darkness. Our guests for tomorrow include Chip Coffey, Brett Butler, and Jennifer Runyon. So tomorrow, a Throwback Thursday episode brought to you by your friends at HelloFresh with Chip Coffey, Brett Butler, and Jennifer Runyon. And then Friday, brand new episode with a brand new Theater of the Mind as well. For Dave Schrader, I'm Tim Dennis. This has been the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.